Hey, supply chainers, wherever you are in the world, this is Sarah Barnes-Humphrey with you today. Are you ready? Let's talk supply chain. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Thoughts and Coffee. It is another Tuesday. I am back from Vegas. We're going to be talking all about that and really excited to be here with you today. I know Audrey hosted. She was a rock star last week, hosted Thoughts and Coffee for me, and we're going to talk a little bit about that too. But first, we could not have Thoughts and Coffee without our sponsor, Fastenal. So what are your business supply chain challenges? Too much inventory on hand, too many disruptions and stockouts. Are there too many steps and touches involved? Well, Fastenal can help you. They have the ability and experience to help your supply chain. So go to fastenal.com. Fastenal is where industry meets innovation. So last week was a very good week in Vegas. If you guys have not seen the posts about Manifest, then you are totally missing out. There was a lot of posts on LinkedIn about what happened in Vegas for Manifest. Lots of people there. I think there was about 3,000 people at Manifest for their second year in production. So congratulations to the team. They put on a really, really good show. I did about 30 plus interviews, I think, in 2 days. We did some podcasting on site, so you're going to be hearing some of those episodes coming up. And then I did some Woman on the Street segments and interviewed a bunch of people for Manifest themselves. So stay tuned for those. That was a lot of fun. Now, before we go on, I do want to send some love and light out to Syria and Turkey. I know that Audrey has posted on LinkedIn and on our Instagram with some ways to donate. And obviously, you can donate through the Red Cross as well. So let's talk, before I bring Audrey up, let's talk a little bit about what's happening on Let's Talk Supply Chain. So our newest episode is Woman in Supply Chain. And we are really lucky because SAP is sponsoring our Woman in Supply Chain series for the next few months. And so we were really lucky to featured Darcy McLaren. Now, she also started a Woman in Supply Chain group at SAP and is doing some amazing things to elevate diverse voices in the industry. So if you haven't gone to check out this episode, definitely go and check it out. It's episode 321, wherever you listen to the show, either Apple, Spotify. You can also go to letstalksupplychain.com. Now, what else do we have? So we've got some live shows that are happening this week. DC Fragola is going live with action items on Friday, gaining trust through small wins, selling the C-suite. Now, we're going to put the link in the comments for you. Now, you want to go and click the attend button. Even if this time does not work for you, go and click the attend button, because then after it goes live, we are going to send you what are we going to send you? I am going to send you a message straight from me with the link to watch the recording. So whether you can attend or not, click the attend button so that we can send you a message with the recording and you don't miss out on anything. Now, I've got this fun thing that I really want to share with you, but I need to bring Audrey up and she has no idea what I'm going to be sharing. And this is the fun part. So let's bring her up. Hey, Audrey. Oh, there we go. Hey, Audrey, how you doing?
Good. How are you?
Good. What's happening? How did last week go?
It was good. How is it February though? That happened.
I'm not entirely sure. I feel like January was 6 months.
Yeah. But also
I feel like
2
it should be
seconds.
June. I feel like it should be June. So how did it go with Kelly?
It was so fun.
Yeah.
So fun. And like Kelly knows so much about digital trade and the sort of trade policy space and the finance piece. So it was a delight to talk to her. And I'm going to be on a panel with her at TPM Tech in a couple of weeks, along with Amy Morgan from Alvara. So it's like,
yeah,
I know. So it's like, it's so exciting to have that come together because we know each other. I think we've even met each other, but it'll be nice to like have a little bit of time together. So yeah.
So excited.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for being a rock star and for hosting last week. Now, last week, again, I just mentioned earlier that I was at Manifest, but
Yes.
can I tell you how I ended my week? If you guys did not see my post
Yeah. If
on
you haven't
LinkedIn,
seen it.
I did 30 plus interviews. So let me tell you, that was a lot on my
Yeah.
feet all day. And plus you're in Vegas. So like it's a
It's,
kilometer to get anywhere
yeah.
or a mile if I'm American to get anywhere. And so you're on your feet a lot. And so on the Friday, I decided to take a self-care day. So, I got myself organized with work.
Yeah.
And then I went for a massage. I went to a steam room. I did an updo because I took myself out for sushi. And then I went to Adele, which was the best show I have ever seen my whole entire life. If you can go and see Adele, and you like her, obviously,
Yeah.
go and see her because it was amazing.
I
Absolutely
was so
amazing.
happy for you because like it was quite the experience to get the tickets to
Yes.
Adele. There was a journey for that.
It was such a journey, let
Yeah.
me tell you. I had Jessica Walter help me, I think, last year try to
Yeah.
get tickets. So she was on the
Yeah.
wait list. I was on the wait list. We were
Yeah.
trying to get tickets,
Yeah.
didn't get tickets. Then it came back around and I was on the wait list, didn't get tickets. So I ended up having to go through StubHub because I
Yeah.
was like, I am not going.
You can't.
And I just made it happen.
Like when you're a fan like that, or like when you appreciate someone, like you have to go. And there's like, I think we all have our person who you're like, yes, I would pay money, significant money, just to like one time,
One
just
time.
to see them live.
Mhm.
Just like you have to. It's like life is too short. You have to. You have to do it.
And I'm going to let everybody in a little bit of a secret. So I've watched people cry over celebrities before, and
Yeah.
I was like, "What? I don't understand that."
Okay.
Yeah, I cried a little
You
bit
were
at
crying.
Adele. It
You were
was
bawling,
so
weren't you?
emotional. So for
There's a lot
anybody
of
who's cried over a
energy.
celebrity, I got you.
Yeah.
I
It's a
get it
big
now.
moment. It's a big moment.
It was a big moment. All
Yeah.
right. One thing that I want to share with you guys. So CJ on my team found this. Do you guys know what Insight Timer is? So it's a meditation app. And she found this meditation on logistics, which I think is absolutely hilarious. So this
Interesting.
guy, through a very sleepy voice, I don't know if you guys are gonna be able to hear this, but I'm gonna try. Can you hear it? You can't hear it?
No.
Anyways, the link is on in the comments. This guy talks about logistics and what logistics actually means as a way to put you to sleep.
Is that good representation for the industry? Or
I'm not entirely sure, but I had to share it with all of you because I just thought this was the funniest thing I've ever seen. So if I scroll down, hold on. In this episode of the I Can't Sleep podcast, Fall Asleep Learning About Logistics, I used to think this was primarily a subject around math. Turns out it has more to do with moving goods and supplies from one location to another. Yeah, boring for sure. Happy sleeping.
there is math.
Oh, oh my goodness. Like, people, we need to make sure that we are doing a better job.
Even I
Somebody
think of
needs
doing
to
these
connect
videos.
with this guy on LinkedIn, or maybe I need to connect with this guy on LinkedIn and
Yeah.
be like, listen, man,
Yeah. Excuse me.
supply chain and logistics is amazing and not boring. Anyways, I thought I would just share that with you.
Oh
All
my
right.
goodness, that's a good
Now,
find.
now it's time for the poll. So we got a poll of the week. Do you think more positions should transition into a remote model? 62% of you said absolutely. 10% of you said no need. 28% 28% said some or most of them. We had 643 votes. Not a ton of comments on this one, but obviously a resounding 62% on absolutely we need to be in a remote model. And I think that goes to the mindset of how we're all thinking about what we're doing on a day-to-day basis. What do you think of these results?
I'm not. I don't know if I would say I'm surprised. I
Yeah.
think there are definitely still some roles that are very much face to face. I do think I was having this conversation with someone the other day. Who I can't remember, but it's like we're not geared for the remote I don't think managers have been equipped to set up and interact remotely. I think we all still have a very much a mindset of in-desk management and in-desk collab or face-to-face collaboration, which is so important. But I think there's really good ways to do it with also having remote work. And I don't think we've made that shift in, for some of us, it's mindset. And for some of us, it's skill building. You can't just automatically like do these things or know what's best or what's going to work. Like it's a different skill set. And I think that's where right now we're finding these kind of friction points, is because we have people who just don't have the skill set to be able to manage it. And so then our response is sort of fear-based. Like, I don't know what people are doing. I don't know what this work. And so it's like, let's just have them face to face because that's easier. But it's not necessarily better. And so I would agree with most people. Like, there's tons of jobs you could do remotely. What we're lacking is even the remote worker is lacking some of the skills that they need, right? Because you have to communicate a little bit more when you're not face to face, or you have to be more intentional about meetings when you're not face to face. And like, we've been doing some really good here at Orchard, some get-togethers where it's like team building, and it's like there's no way I can be in the New York office every single day, but if I see them twice a year, that's still like for a good a day or a day and a half, like that's still a good chunk of time to be building those relationships with people who really I do work with every day, right? So you see some companies really leaping ahead on it, but it is a skill set. So
absolutely. And I think we have to have a lot more education and time together from a standpoint of what are the skills that we need?
Yes.
What are people, needing to learn more about? Is it time management? But I think it's also a way to empower ourselves to really take back our schedule, figure out what works for us. I mean, at Manifest, they had a woman in supply chain luncheon on Thursday, and Alice Marie from DHL was talking about how she went to work after having kids. She had 4 kids, and her husband stayed home. But he was also working on his business. And so he was working, late nights, and she was taking over for dinner. And she's like, it wouldn't work for most people, but that's what worked for us.
Yes.
And so it empowered them to be able to have the life that they wanted to have, the amount of kids that they wanted to have, the lifestyle they wanted to have, and it worked for their family. But she said it doesn't work for everybody, and you've got to figure out what that looks like. And I think remote work can really empower us to do that. But also, as a founder of a team of freelancers, and we have I think 19 freelancers across the world. It's really about communication. It's about, in that moment when the communication isn't working in Slack, picking up the phone and calling that person and being like, listen, that's not working for me. Let's have a 5-minute conversation and figure out what that can look like, or what we're really talking about here. Right.
And that's that
skill needs to be some flexibility.
But it's the skill thing too, if we don't necessarily learn how to use these tools.
Yeah.
And I read that book by Cal Newport about email, and he's like, we all just started using it. No one thought about it. And then you start a job and you just are using email. Well, is it effective for the work that you're doing? Is it, Davin makes a good point. Though, you really have to focus on, like, you really have to be mindful of your new people and making sure that they are doing the face-to-face interactions and that they are having time with people in different areas. But it has to be very intentional.
Absolutely. Well, before we go on to our first article, I do want to say hi to Elias, Imtiaz, Larry, and everybody else on my personal LinkedIn page. Thank you so much for joining us. All right. So now we're getting to our first article. Now, Audrey, I didn't ask you for a market update yet because I figured you would give us a market update with this particular article. So this article is talking about West Coast ports. Now, I think you and I brought this up 6 months ago in the fact when they were doing the negotiations, I think around the rail, maybe it wasn't 6 months ago, but a few months ago, or at least 6 months ago, where we were talking about this is coming up. The Longshore and Warehouse Union out on the West Coast is coming up for negotiations on their contract. And so it's all well and good, whatever we negotiated 6 months ago. But were we really thinking about what was going to happen with the contract negotiations when it came to the Longshore and Warehouse Union? We've talked about this a few times. Now, the question is, would you trust the West Coast ports, depending on what happens with the contract negotiations? So in this particular article, There was a survey that went out to 341 logistics managers. 40% of those said they were going to divert their trade because of the threat of strike. But interestingly enough, the second reason is because of the gig worker law in California.
Yeah.
So, Audrey, talk to us about what's happening in your world in supply chain right now. Is this something that is imminent for you? What is happening? I know this is an older article, so I don't know if they came to an
No,
end.
they haven't. It's still
Okay.
ongoing.
All right.
I think, yeah, I mean, I looked at it. I looked at it when it was getting sort of heated, or we had the deadline July 1st and that sort of thing. And like, I've had a rough 2021 and 2022 with moving stuff. And I just felt that in this, we're coming into a day and age where people, you know, parties are behaving so much more reasonably because no one wants the worst case scenario.
That's true.
Right. And so people don't want to strike, they want to work. Right. And the culture out of the pandemic is that there are labor shortages and labor issues. So you have to sort of create a moderately happy or something workplace, right? So you can't go like, oh, we're going to treat people like that. It's like, okay, then we just won't work. So so
Right.
you're in this weird sort of space where it's like people are kind of like, you know what, there's a give and take, there's a negotiation, there's a partnership that has to be built between them. And I think that we're moving away from this sort of really adversarial sort of takes that we used to see, sort of
The blame game. That's what
the
we were
blame
known for,
game,
right?
like,
The blame
yeah.
game.
Well, and then people get these, it's like, oh, these people do this, and all these absolutes, right? All these absolutes and othering of the two parties who literally work together probably day to day. But like all of a sudden in this sphere, we have to be adversaries. And you're like, okay, we don't have to do that anymore. So I think for me, it was like, there's a risk, but there's also like, I had too much kind of going on to really make a plan to divert stuff. So which maybe speaks to my time management, but I didn't move things and things went fine. And I'm in the position now, I'm not moving things. I tend to route geographically because it can get very expensive in the middle. Like US and Canada are quite large places. Same with Australia. Like it's pretty tricky to get it all the way around somewhere by truck.
Time.
So I tend to do the sort of shortest route too. And I think, looking at this article, a lot of people were talking about some other reasons, right? Like we did have rail issues. We have had truck issues. I haven't heard that much about this new gig law. But those kinds of things, they do make certain, they make certain industries or certain experiences, it's a bit more challenging for them. For me, I don't think maybe I'm going to notice the same impact. So I'm not maybe going to make that shift. But, every supply chain is different. You have to think about it.
I'll tell you who's winning.
Well,
it's in the article. The Port of New York and New Jersey.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. We're having a great old time. So, which is good. I mean, but there's enough stuff that's moving out there. We have seen a dip from the volumes that we were consumer goods coming in through the pandemic. We have seen a shift in we have literally now seen the shift in manufacturing that people have been talking about for 6 or 7 years of localization, shifting up, manufacturing locations. These are all good things. There's still trade going on. Yeah. Right. And so I think it's, you use what you need to use and what's most effective and,
Awesome. Well, I appreciate that. And I think the audience is going to appreciate that too, because everybody is in a different position. All the organizations, their supply chains are very unique. And we've learned that through the pandemic. And so what works for you won't necessarily work for everybody. But I think it's really great to hear about what you're working on, how you're thinking about it, so we don't feel like we're alone in those conversations, in the way we're thinking about it, whether it's small, medium, enterprise, right? We all go through it. So the second article is a little bit of fun, and it talks to the history of supply chains. Now, I don't know if you knew about this, but this goes back all the way 4,000 years. So at the top of this article, and I'm gonna get that picture of the shipwreck a little bit higher. There we go. So 3650 to 3200 years ago, we had long distance supply chains of metal. And so what is really interesting is they call it the tin network. and they moved tin from like long distances. I think they were talking about southern Turkey to ships. And the reason why tin was so in demand and why it had to travel long distances is because it produced bronze. And apparently back then, I don't know enough about it, but bronze was the thing that they wanted. So what did you think about this? You're a bit of a history buff. You like space.
Yeah, I think it's fascinating, right? Because it was these, they're tracing the origins of they're trying to, sort of carbon date, which apparently is hard for Bronze Age items. And
Yes.
yeah, they're finding this route between like Tajikistan, Uzbekistan, and Turkey, of this very specific material, of these sort of tin materials. And I think, one, sometimes we forget how old the industry of supply chain is, or global trade, that it has really been around since humans started realizing that there were other humans in other areas. And there's fascinating history about how we got started in maritime trade it's the longest kind of history of trade. So I think this is a great article and kind of shows that. And then how, yeah, you want that little, it's not necessarily everything, but it's like, oh, these particular pieces, right? And what were they trading them for? Was it, different kinds of agricultural goods? Was it different kind of handicrafts and craftsmen? Fascinating.
Yeah. And so 4,000 years ago, they talked about crops being moved in Central Asia. And that was the beginning, apparently, of supply chain.
Yeah.
But the tin pipeline, or the tin network that they talk about in this article, the long distance was 3,000 kilometers from Uzbekistan to the Mediterranean, to ships in the Mediterranean, I believe.
Yeah.
That's what they're talking about. And then obviously those ships were taking the tin other places. But the shipwreck that I showed you in that picture at the top of the article, is from 3,300 years ago, and it's off the coast of Turkey. And the cargo that was in that ship was 1 metric ton of tin. So it just goes to show you how old supply chain actually is, and how long we've actually been transporting goods. I mean, 3,000 kilometers 3,300 years ago.
Far.
That was a long way. Like, how long
That
do you
was like
think it
an
would have
8-month
taken them?
kind of trip.
8 months?
I would imagine, yeah.
I'm gonna have to Google it.
I know,
Larry,
we gotta
are
figure
you
it out.
listening and watching? Larry, can you
How
Google
fast
it for
did
me and let me
sailboats
know?
go? How fast did donkeys, horses, ox, whatever go? Like, it was months. It had to have been months, right?
Oh, so Joe is asking for the link. So Nicole, I haven't
Oh,
seen the links being put in here. Joe, the link might be in the comments of the actual post if you want to go and check that out. But Nicole, I'm going to ask you to put the links in the comments here on the show as well, so that Joe can go and find that article.
My last thought on this article, though, is like, how far have we come in trade? Like, were they getting their PODs from their truckers? Or
Well, it wouldn't be a trucker. It would be like you would get a POD
from their sailboat
at the ship.
captain. I don't know.
The sailboat.
Are we still doing paper documents from 3,400 years ago? Can we get this just into like the 19th century? Like, come on, supply chain, here we go.
Did they have paper back then? Or was it like, were we like chipping? I don't know. I remember a TV show where you're like chipping out letters
I
from
like
the rock.
history. I'm not like that knowledgeable about the reality.
Okay, well, if anybody knows, please put it in the comments.
Was it a paper, papyrus, board, bill of lading? Was it just word of mouth? Like, now we've moved to like photos of your front door for packages, and back then it was like, yeah, I got delivered, promise.
Davin's like not sure it was paper. I don't think it was paper either. I think it's like rock and a chisel.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
But it brings up a really good point. I mean, that was 4,000 years ago. I'd like to know from you guys how far you think we've actually come being in supply chain and what we're dealing with today. Just saying. Anyways, put that in the comments.
Yeah.
All right. Excuse me. I got a little bit sick after Vegas. I came home with a little bit of a cold, so
Yeah.
excuse me for the clearing of the throat. Anyways, so our last article is to celebrate the fact that women CEOs lead more than 10% of Fortune 500 companies for the first time ever. And this
Woohoo.
list has been going on for 68 years. That's
Wow.
a really long time,
Yeah,
but we made it.
we did it.
So what do you think?
I think there was work done for a period of time a decade ago, and it started finally starting to pay off. So I think it's
Absolutely.
exciting. I think it's good. I do think in some cases, if you think about the commentary right now about the economy being in an inflationary period heading into recession, it's an interesting time to then have women go into leadership. You're seeing a lot of companies that may have been struggling, may have made some interesting decisions during the pandemic, and then you're bringing in new leadership. So there's a risk that can be a real challenge for the new person coming in. So you hope that in sort of the vernacular we talk about a glass cliff, and so are you putting all these women in these positions of being on a glass cliff where the company's in such a turmoil or bad situation that you know the woman CEO gets to take the position of the collapse or the bad news.
Mhm.
But I'm trying to be optimistic, so I'll just be excited.
Well, and I think only time will tell, right, too,
Yeah,
because
yeah,
a lot of
exactly.
times when we look at where we are and what's happening with the economy and things like that,
Yeah,
it's diversity that takes a bit of a hit.
yeah,
And so hopefully this is going to be maintained. So what they say in this article is in summer 2022, we were at 8.8%.
yeah.
And by January 1st, 2023, we were at the 10% with
Hmm.
53
Hmm.
female CEOs. There was a big jump between the summer and
And
January.
January, yeah,
So your point is really interesting. And it'd be interesting to find out, why that shift.
yeah,
But two notable organizations, Under Armour and Foot Locker,
yeah.
have put in a female CEO. Now, I want to go back to my comments on my personal LinkedIn, back to the last article.
Oh, okay.
So Larry is totally on board with you. 8 months for 3,000 kilometers. He thinks you did a really good job there.
Yeah.
And Michael Cadio, thank you so much for joining us. Spice trading with China and the Aztecs goes back even further. Well, I'd like to know what that looked like. We're talking
Yeah.
5,000 years, 6,000 years.
Yeah.
Larry, we need a fact checker on that one. And Larry also says fur, lots and lots of fur. Were they
Oh,
writing on fur
right.
though? I'm not
They're
sure.
trading it.
Yeah, trading it. Going back to your trading point. Got it.
Yeah.
Got it.
Wearing it. Yeah.
All right. So before we wind down, I do want to go through some of the upcoming events that we have going on. So, of course,
Yeah.
we've got DC going live on Friday. Remember to
Yeah.
click that attend button, because even if you can't attend, I will be sending you the link to the recording.
I love that show.
TPM Tech and TPM 23. Audrey and I are going to be there in person. Plus, the Blended Pledge gave away 3 registrations to diverse voices. So Selena is going to be joining us, Lisa Fenton's going to be joining us, and Sneha Kumari is going to be
Yeah.
joining us as well. Selena actually is going to be part of the DEI Honors panel, which we're super excited about because Audrey and I are on the DEI Honors Committee as well. So lots to celebrate at TPM this year. I'm going to be doing TPM TV again, which is going to be fun.
Ooh.
We've got the Intelligence Perspective, another live show with Overhaul every second Tuesday at 1 p.m. Eastern. Of course, we've got Thoughts and Coffee. Log Tech Live with Eric Johnson happens the first and third Friday of every single month. Definitely go and check that out. And then, of course, the last Friday of every month, No Bullshipping with Hope White, talking all about trucking. And we've got Special Delivery with Far Eye. That's the last Thursday of every month as well. So hopefully see you there. And again, make sure to click the attend button because you'll be sent the recording from me. And last but not least, our podcast. So the Let's Talk Supply Chain podcast. If you have a supply chain challenge and you're looking for a solution, we have most likely had them on our show, and we talk
Mhm.
about who they are, what they do,
Yeah.
how they can help you. They even give us a real life example of how they've helped a customer. I know it's really difficult being a supply chain professional and trying to navigate what solutions are on the market. That's why the podcast is there. And so I just want to make sure that you know that. If you go to letstalksupplychain.com, go to the search bar, put in the keyword, all of that content will come up and you'll be able to search through and listen to see which vendor will be the right solution for you. So just want to put that out there. Thank you so much for everybody for joining me. I've got Flexport joining me next week. So stay tuned for that. Audrey and I are going live on Instagram right after this. So if you're on Instagram, go to Let's Talk Supply Chain and we'll see you over there for a fun discussion. Anyway,
Yeah.
thank you so much to everybody for joining us.
Thanks,
Have a great
everyone.
week.